Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So we are from group 5. They are Linda Puspitariani, Yeremia Ronald Pratama, Indri Almira, Aldania, and Fitri. Today we will explain about language maintenance and shift. Hope you guys can pay attention about this material, and let's move to the material. Okay, so language shift happens when communities who share a native language abandon it and shift to speaking another one instead. It can happen rapidly or slowly and may lead to language death. Okay, for the next is language shift in different communities. So there are three communities. The first one is migrant minorities. So migrant minorities, the order of domains in which language shift occur, may differ for different individuals and different groups, but gradually over time the language of the wider society. And then migrants are virtually monolingual in their mother tongue. Their children are bilingual and their grandchildren are often monolingual displaces. In the language of the host country, the minority language mother tongue. And the second communities is non-migrant communities. So, language shift is not always the result of migration. For this community, the home is the one most under any family's control. Language may be maintained in more domains than just the home. And the last is migrant majorities. When language shift occur, it is always shift towards the language of the domain powerful group. A domain group has no incentive to adopt the language of minority. The domain language is associated with status, prestige, and social success.
Okay, next is language death and language loss. When all the people who speak a language die, the language dies with them. For example, in 2011, British newspaper report that Ayapaneco and Indigo's language of Mexico was in danger of dying out as the only two remaining fluent speaker refused to talk to each other. Here another example of language loss. Annie at 20 is a young speaker of Diribal, an Australian Aboriginal language. She also speaks English, which she learned at school. There is no written Diribal material for her to read, and there are fewer and fewer contexts in which she can appropriate, hear, and speak the language. So, she is steady becoming less proficient in it. She can understand the Diribal she hears used by older people in her community, and she used it to speak to her grandmother. But her grandmother is sketching about her ability in Diribal, saying Annie doesn't speak the language properly.
Okay guys, I will continue the material. It's about example of language loss. When a language dies gradually, as opposed to all its speakers being wiped out by a massacre or epidemic, the process is similar to that of language shift. And the next is the function of the language are taken over in one domain after another by another language. As the domains in which speakers use the language shrink, the speakers of the dying language become gradually less proficient in it. And the next is the language usually retreats till its use only in the home, and finally it is restricted to such personal activities as counting, praying, and dreaming. And the next material is about factors contributing to language shifts are economic, social political factors, and demographic factors. And the first one is the economic factor. Obtaining work is the most obvious economic reason for learning another language. In English-dominated countries, for instance, people learn English in order to get good jobs. The second one is social factors. Language shift occurs when the community sees no reason to take active steps to maintain their ethnic language. When a community of speakers moving to a region or country whose language is different from theirs, there is a tendency to shift to the new language. Every time an immigrant learns the native language of the new country and passes it down to children in place of the old country language. Okay guys, the next material will be presented by Indri Almira. Thank you.
Third political factor, a rapid shift occurs when people are anxious to get on in a society where knowledge of the second language is a prerequisite for success. Fourth, demographic factor, resistance to language shift tends to last longer in rural than in urban areas because rural groups tend to be isolated from the centers of political power for longer. The rural people can meet most of their social needs in the ethnic or minority language. Nothing benefits a country more than to treasure the language and culture of its various people because in doing so, it fosters intergroup understanding and realizes greater dividends in the form of originality, creativity, and versatility.
So for the next point is about how can a minority language maintained. So there are 3 points about it. For the first point, there are certain social factors which seem to retard wholesale language shift for a minority language group, at least for a time, where language is considered an important symbol of a minority group's identity. For example, the language is likely to be mentioned longer. And for the second point, if families from a minority group live near each other and see each other frequently, this also helps them to maintain their language. And for the third point, for those who immigrate is the degree and frequency of contact with homeland. That's about how a minority language maintains. And for the next slide is about language revival. Language revival is when people try a language that is not spoken or is spoken very little, spoken more often again. Hebrew language was revived in Israel after being effectively dead for nearly 1,700 years. Um, yeah, so that's about our presentation, and we are from Group 5, and thank you.